welcome to Film Strip. These podcasts are spoiler-filled as we discuss the plots, characters, and themes of the films in review. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of the respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504, C2, Title 17.
Welcome to Film Strip. I'm Jay.
And I'm Nick.
And this is our review of Cliffhanger, starring Sylvester Stallone, Janine Turner, Michael Rooker, Rex Linn, Leon Robinson, Caroline Goodall, and John Lithgow. Directed by Rennie Harlan, released in 1993 on a budget of $70 million, grossed $255 million at the box office. So we're wrapping up our Summer of Stallone series here with this one. And Nick, I remember seeing this in theaters in 1993 because they didn't totally card you back then, and I could get in. And I probably watched it a few times since. Really, the only thing I remember is what the hell ever accent John Lithgow's trying to play in this movie. Like, I remember like a lot of beautiful scenery and just your standard issue sort of goofy Stallone as the hero flit.
Yeah, not so much like John Lithgow with me, but I do remember him kind of like, he was bigger in the 90s than he was now. I remember he had obviously this, and then he had that Third Rock from the Sun show.
Yeah, that was in the late 90s. This was the part of his movie career where he was playing bad guys. He was in like Raising Cain as a dual doppelgangers. It's terrible.
Like, all I know from the 90s is this, and he was the head alien guy from that show. And then, of course, he went on to do, like, I think he was in a season of Dexter later on, and then he ended up being, God, what was that, like that Daddy's Home 2 or something?
He's been in all kinds of stuff. Like the thing, like John Lithgow to me, like I remember him more from like the 80s and his drama stuff, right? And now then he started doing, I don't know, again, bad action, evil hero. He was in Ricochet, which is like a 91 Denzel joint where he's like the bad guy. And he had this thing where he could play, I think it's because he can twist his voice to play kind of sinister, which is probably why they threw him in the latest Pet Sematary movie, because he could kind of do that stuff. But I always think of him as sort of like the nice neighbor next door, or like your nice math teacher or something. So it's weird for him to be the bad guy, but
I guess we're just kind of going against trope with him or something, just kind of the way he looks, because he does look so unassuming when you see him. Like, yeah, he's got the, the history teacher look to him.
Exactly.
And putting him as like someone who's like in this movie where he's a crazy, sociopath or whatever, it's kind of going against tropes there. It'd be kind of like making a Sylvester Stallone, like a bomb maker or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, we should tell everybody to pull the curtain back here. Originally, we were going to end Summer of Stallone with The Specialist, and Nick and I recorded an episode. And thankfully, the audio had some troubles, but we're saving y'all. Like, that was bad. Like, there's nothing to talk about in that movie. So,
just to spoil the ending, I actually said it was the worst movie we ever reviewed.
Yeah, so that one now is in the lost episodes Film Strip, so you guys don't have to hear that one. But you are here to hear us talk about Cliffhanger. And the other thing I did remember from this was Janine Turner, who was huge at the time. I was not a Northern Exposure fan, but I knew that was what she was known for and stuff. So I knew her as the kind of it girl from Northern Exposure. You ever watch that show?
No. Was that the guy from the guy who was an alien? Was he in there?
I don't know.
Tom Skerritt.
I don't know if Skerritt was in that one or not. I can't remember. He might have been. I don't remember. I never watched the show. I just know that like it was about this doctor that ended up in the middle of, I don't know, Alaska or something. And she was kind of the romantic foil for him. And that's all I really remember. But she was also kind of hard to get or whatever, because she was playing like the more 90s woman and stuff. She had short hair and she was a different look. She was kind of, punky and stuff. Everything I've ever seen her in, I thought she was good in, but I didn't like follow her necessarily. I just knew she was from that show.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Like it was Rob Morrow was in it. I guess I'm really off with Tom Skerritt. He was in another 90s show. I don't know.
He was in Picket Fences. That's probably what you're thinking about.
That's it. Yeah. It's all this stuff's coming back. That 30-somethings. Yep. I all these crazy early 90s stuff I don't ever want to revisit. So
And Michael Rooker I knew from lots of things. Always a good character actor. I mean, he was in Henry, the Portrait of a Serial Killer. He was Rowdy Burns in Days of Thunder opposite Tom Cruise after Top Gun, which was cool in the 80s. And I've seen this guy in a lot of stuff. He's still in movies. He's in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies as Chris Pratt's dad. So the blue guy that can whistle the arrow around or whatever. So I mean,
and he also was in The Walking Dead too. He was the neo-Nazi who became the lovable neo-Nazi in The Walking Dead.
But no, you've got other people like Leon Robinson. He actually just went by Leon at the time, so I knew that guy from other stuff. Rex Lynn's a Texas character actor, seeing a lot of stuff. Caroline Goodall I had seen in other things too. I always knew her as, again, kind of one of the, I don't know, Euro bad heavies and things like that, or always like playing a professor or something along those lines. But I'll be honest with you, I honestly got her confused with like the blonde woman that's opposite Jeremy Irons in the third Die Hard movie. For a minute, I thought they were one and the same because they look so much alike, but they're not the same people. But she was like the mom in Disclosure. Remember when we did that back in the day? She was the wife in Disclosure to Michael Douglas's characters that had to talk about sexual politics and all that kind of stuff. So,
and where have I seen Rex Lynn though before? I mean, like that mustache was driving me nuts the entire
dude.
movie.
He's been in all kinds of stuff. Matter of fact, the mustache was only a short period of time. He mostly works without it, but that dude has been in CSI Miami. That was one of his big pieces. He was in that movie Thunderheart. He was an FBI agent. He was in Wyatt Earp, which was the opposite Tombstone. He's in Clear and Present Danger. He's been in that he did 90s movies. He was in Long Kiss Goodnight. Yeah. Lots of stuff. He was in Rush Hour. That's kind of what he's really known for. I think Rush Hour was the big thing he did, but he's always playing like a good side part. He was in Zodiac. So if you remember that.
Yeah, that might be what I know
it.
From Zodiac. Yeah, because man, was he out of all these people in this movie, like he annoyed me the most. Like there was something about that mustache and just like this like bravado that he had. We won't get into it, but man, I wanted to punch him so bad.
Apparently so did everybody else, right? But no, apparently, again, good character actor. But this is a Stallone vehicle, and to be told about it, like this movie was in production or pre-production for like, I don't know, a dozen years or so, because the premise written about like mountain climbing rescuers and stuff like that had been floating around Hollywood forever, and they had gone through all kinds of scripts, different directors, different people, and they finally were able to get it down to this story. And they got Stallone attached to it, but he only had a limited window to do, because this is a big year for Stallone, because Demolition Man that we released last episode came out a few months after this thing. So Stallone's in a lot of movies in the early 90s. So they had to get him for a certain amount of time. And then they attached Rennie Harlan to it. And I know Rennie Harlan has like this terrible reputation, among cinephiles and stuff like that. But the reason the guy kept getting work was the same reason Brett Ratner got work for years. He turned in stuff on budget and on time, and it made money at the box office. And so when before Rennie Harlan did Cutthroat Island and really cut his own career throat with that one, he was a go-to director for a lot of stuff. And in the early 90s, when he was coming off doing Nightmare on Elm Street movies and a lot of other action stuff, I think he had done Die Hard 2 at that point. So why not
go to this guy? He was supposed to do Alien 3 as well.
Yes, he was.
Another movie that we reviewed back in the day. He was originally all lined up for that for at least a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was before everything fell apart. And so, yeah, I mean, he had done stuff that showed he could do this, and he knew how to work a camera. And again, he knows how to work in Europe. Most of this is shot in Italy. There's some of it shot in Durango, Colorado, but most of it's shot in Italy. So you've only got a limited amount of time. And look, they shot this thing and put it together quick to get it into theaters. And we can talk about how that works or not, but Rennie Harlan was kind of the go-to action director for a few years in Hollywood.
Yep, a few short years, luckily, but yeah.
I have to say though, like honestly, there's very few things of his I've seen I didn't at least have some fun with. I mean, Cutthroat Island's garbage, and I'll never watch that again. But unless we somehow or another come around to it on this show, but most everything else I've ever seen him direct, I didn't dislike it. I mean, it's not great cinema, it's not Stanley Kubrick stuff, but it's it's fun. It's popcorn movies.
Yeah, he kind of reminds me of the guy who did like Independence Day and like Godzilla. Was that
Roland Emmerich
or something? It's like the European action director that comes over, and it's such like throwaway movies. Like I think everything I've seen of his, like I think Deep Blue Sea is probably the guiltiest pleasure I have.
Yeah,
just because I think it's actually a pretty it's a bad movie, no doubt, but it's very watchable.
Yeah, very fun.
But but out of everything else I've seen of it, was like I've seen like obviously the prequel, The Exorcist, which was god awful. Driven, which another Stallone vehicle.
I saw Driven in theaters.
My god, I did too. That was so bad. It was. I remember sitting there watching it as like a kid, and I'm just like. Usually a lot more forgiving when you're a kid watching a movie and stuff like this, but I remember just watching that like, oh my god, this is awful. This is so bad.
And look, I grew up like watching Formula One racing and all that kind of stuff. Like I was really into that stuff. And I was like, man, this is such trash. It was so bad. Kip Pardue's in that. Remember that when he was a thing?
Oh, yeah.
We've hinted around it enough here. I guess it's time to give people a quick plot summary on Cliffhanger before we jump off the ledge, as it were. So, Stallone plays Gabe Walker, the most skilled rescue climber there is, of course. But even he makes mistakes. When he and his girlfriend, Jesky, who's also a fellow rescue worker and played by Janine Turner, try to rescue another climber, Hal, and his girlfriend, Sarah, and Hal's played by Michael Rooker, things get out of hand. Sarah slips and falls out of Gabe's grip and plunges 4,000 feet to her death. Gabe is unable to put this behind him, and neither is Hal, so he leaves town. 8 months later, though, he's forced to conquer those fears because Hal is taken hostage by Eric Quaylen, a dangerous ex-CIA operative and a group of mercenaries who hijack a plane full of treasury cash with the help of a turncoat agent. However, in a firefight in midair, the plane they were on crashes and the suitcases carrying the money are scattered all over the Colorado Rockies. So therefore, they put out a fake rescue call, and Jesse convinces Gabe to go help Hal, and they're both taken hostage. Well, Gabe escapes, but Hal's being used by Quaylen and his group to locate the suitcases using GPS locators. Hal and Gabe and Jesse, on the other hand, are running around trying to intercept them, and they always seem to be one step ahead of them. So, but a lot of back and forth going on. Gabe and Jesse continually thwart the mercenaries, and several of them are killed or die in treacherous terrain. Finally, Gabe gets a showdown with Quaylen, and they fight in a helicopter that is crashing down a cliff until Gabe gets the upper hand and Quaylen is dispatched. The Treasury agents and FBI show up just as Hal, Gabe, and Jesse are reunited, and the movie ends atop a beautiful cliff. And that's the straight line plot summary. This movie's pretty simple, as most Stallone movies are. They don't get terribly complicated, but maybe unlike The Specialist, at least we didn't have like a annoying voiceover and movie by voicemail.
Yeah, or Stallone like sitting and laying in a bed with his legs crossed with a blanket between his. Yeah.
We don't get any gratuitous nudity in this. Like we get a shirt off at one point for Stallone because I think it's like in his contract. But no, we don't get any of that. It's cold.
Hey, the audience pays to come see me without the shirt on or whatever.
Yeah, right. So, but no, we do. I will say this for this movie, as cheesy as it is, and we're probably going to rip into it here pretty good. I will give Rennie Harlan and his DP some credit here. The scenery in this is amazing. It is a beautiful looking movie, and it looks good. I mean, they use a good bit of the scenery and the camera to make everything look gorgeous for this absolutely cheeseball film.
Yeah, they didn't even film it on the Rockies. Didn't they film it down in like Chile or something?
No, it's in Italy. That's like I was saying. It was all shot in Italy.
Oh, it's in Italy. Okay.
Yeah. Most of it was shot in Italy. There's a few exteriors that definitely are the Rockies, but this was all shot. Most of it was shot in Italy. They tried to make the most of it. Alex Thompson's the director of photography. I was trying to spit that out a minute ago. They do a good job setting it up.
Yeah. Well, I got to ask you. So we get to this first scene where they're on a little rescue mission where Stallone's got to get up there and get Rooker and his girlfriend off this cliff. And the one thing I just kind of noticed is like they're up there pretty high. I know the Rockies get up to be like 14,000 feet or whatever. And I know they kind of like throw out the term like 4,000. I don't know if they meant 4,000 feet or meters. Being the Rockies, maybe they meant meters. But the whole thing is like it's got to be pretty cold up there, don't you think? And this whole thing is like Stallone's always barely wearing clothes during a lot of these scenes. And I'm like, man, you're up there high altitude, so the air's thinner, and it's like, it's got to be pretty cold up there. I'm like, I don't know, just something that kind of bugged me, especially in the first scene where I'm like, man, you guys are like wearing as least amount of clothes as possible. At least, Stallone is.
Yeah, we're recording this in June, by the way. It snowed last week in Colorado and the Rockies where like this would have been. So when you get up high enough, it's going to snow a lot. We see them at first here. Everybody's in shorts and t-shirts and stuff. And I know it gets warmer if you're in the lower parts of the altitudes, but you get up around 4,000 feet, you're getting right under a mile there. It gets a little cool. So it's not realistic, but again, you got these people that you got the two buff men, and Rooker's not a big guy, but he has always been kind of built. And so I'm sure he's trying to macho out with Sly here, who's just absolutely ripped. Of course, he's in what I call like Rocky 3 shape. There's a shape that he got into for that movie, the Rocky 3 Rambo 2 shape. And he stayed in that shape for maybe, 10 or 12 years before he just became like a hunk of spam that he is now. He's ripped. They want to show him off, but we get this opening scene And beyond the fact that they're not wearing enough clothes for it or whatever, they have to do this whole, it's too windy to just winch somebody up. So you got to put a line on this end to this end, and then we'll drag you over. And you basically have to shimmy across this thing. Now, the thing is here, though, is that Sarah is an inexperienced climber. So Hal's taken her up to like this really dangerous spot. He's twisted his knee again, and he can't get him down. So they have to get rescued by, Gabe and Jesse here to get, back to the helicopter and be safe. Why would you ever take somebody who's not very experienced that high up? This is just asking for trouble. This is just a dumb thing.
The in reality thing there would be he's doing it to get laid. That's probably why. It's like, I'm going to go show off here and try to impress the girl and everything like that. But that's the whole thing is like, this is like, not like, where we're at in like, Carolina, where you got kind of more of the eroded mountains where it's more of like a good trail to go up it. Like this was like straight, like sheet rock style going up the cliffs. And I'm like, you got to be a pretty damn good climber just to get up there. And like the whole thing is like, oh, she's a novice. I'm like, there's no way a novice is going to get up that far. You know what I mean? Cause this is like serious, like mountain climbing and stuff, like where they're, using like, what were they using? Like these like little hydraulic guns to shoot like the cable, whatever,
propelling hooks and all that stuff.
Into there and stuff. But yeah, I'm watching this and like, okay, they get up there and everything. And my question is like, was there no better way to get them across as opposed to having her rappel or basically like monkey climb 4,000 feet up? And like, dude, even being like inexperienced climber, that would be scary as shit.
Well, you know what the thing is,
woman who's never done it before.
Yeah, they undercut it by two things. One, she's never done it before, and she's afraid of heights. All right, you would never get. My wife is afraid of heights. You would never
take her
get
swimming.
Exactly, dude. Like, there's other things to do in Colorado. Gorgeous places. Just stay out of Gunnison because they got aliens and weird stuff going on over there.
Go rent a cabin somewhere and have a nice fire or something like that. But I'm thinking too. I'm like, okay, well, if they're going to be like coming down, why don't they like make the helicopter just like a little bit lower? So that way she's kind of like going down with gravity. You know what I mean?
Well, the thing is, there is nowhere around them to land, and they do set up a line. This is the second thing I was going to nitpick, is that it's too windy, too much crosswind right now. So I'm like, Gabe, what you do then is you go up there with shelter materials. You put together a temporary shelter. If you have to make it last through the night, we make it through the night to when the wind dies down, and the helicopter comes tomorrow and winches us all up, and we get the hell out of here. We don't do this gung-ho stuff that's going to get us killed. But obviously we have to have an inciting incident. So that's what the whole purpose of this is. And I will say,
which was spoofed in Ace Ventura too, by the way.
I did know that, and I've tried to forget Ace Ventura altogether, but I did remember that. But there's something about like 80s style tension, and I do say 80s style for something that's in 1993. I realize that, but that bled over till about 1995 for all of us, y'all. And there's something about the way that they do that does work well. I mean, it's a crazy thing. Like, she's in the Swiss seat, it comes unraveled, and basically the buckle is hanging on to her carabiner, which is suspending her up above the ledge. That's all that's holding her together while Stallone is trying to rapidly get out there to rescue her. And I'm like, man, I mean, there's some good tension in this scene. I actually liked the fact that he wasn't able to rescue her in spite of all the work he had to do it.
Yeah, I mean, totally. I mean, it is a good scene. I mean, you got to kind of check your brain to think, okay, this woman could climb up here, but she can't be able to reach up with the other hand. She's not strong enough to do that, but she's strong enough to get up to that point of the mountain. It's like, okay, I'll go with it. Not really, but yeah, I mean, the whole tension thing. And for me too, I'm kind of a little nervous around heights. So just kind of like thinking like being like hanging there with like nothing underneath you, but jagged rocks that are like thousands of feet below you. Yeah, it's enough to get me kind of a little bit on edge, but that's just more due to my own, lacking confidence when it comes to heights.
No, I think a lot of people can relate to that fear, Nick. I mean, totally. That's something that, my wife's not the only person that's afraid of heights. You just admitted to it. And look, I don't care for them. I wouldn't go and do something like this, but it's a good tense scene. It's also, there's a little bit of humanity in it. I mean, she's grabbing onto him and they keep yelling at her to reach up. And I'm like, she's not in shape to do this. She doesn't know how to do it. She's freaking out. She's what the audience would be. And she's like, I don't want to die. Don't drop me. Don't let me die. And she, her gloves just slip out of his, and that's a good fall, like good green screen work. Cause even in the 90s, like, you could always tell when somebody was falling backwards. I was like, that's right up there with like, the Die Hard fall with the guy getting shot out of the window.
The one thing I was actually kind of surprised about is they actually kind of held the camera on her for a good portion of that fall.
Yeah.
Normally on something like that, they would just, the hand would slip. You maybe would just kind of show her falling back, and then it would just be like reaction shots of, the music swelling and everything as it happening. But no, they show her kicking and going down pretty far. I mean, pretty much the only thing they don't show is the actual impact. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Vertical Limit.
Yeah,
There's another mountain climb. That was a movie that started off with the same thing too, where the father falls down. But actually, in that movie, they show him hitting the ground, which was kind of the shocking part. But yeah, I don't think they could really do it here because,
Yeah, it's not that kind of movie. They're gonna have enough violence later on. They couldn't do that. But yeah, I think at one point, like there's a stunt later on where a guy jumps over an open chasm, and he got paid like $1 million to do. He's one of the best climbers in the world at the time doing that, and they had to pay the guy like ridiculous money to get him to do it. I'm told too that like the original cut of the film had people like jumping across spans of like 300 and 400 feet, and the studio was like, no one is going to believe this. This is insane. And they went back and cut it back down to where it was a little more realistic. Because Stallone had, of course, because he has his hands on the script and he helped write the script for this, had, my character's got to do like superhuman shit, man. And I mean, he does all kinds of goofy stuff, but they pare that down for the most part, just beside of setting up like how good he is. But we see that he's not so good that he's not fallible. And so we are supposed to, relate to this. And then we get into the actual setup of the movies. This is almost like the prologue, right? And we go to this whole setup at the Treasury where we've got $1,000 bills that are not in circulation. They're used for banking transactions. And you got great character actor Paul Winfield, whose special appearance by Paul Winfield, talking to Rex Lynn Travers, who we'll find out is the bad agent that's transporting all this money. Like, hey, there's no way everybody's going to steal this. They can rip us off in cars and trains, but they never get us in a plane. You got Bruce McGill there, another great character actor, just in this one scene, really, and next in the plane. And I love this whole idea that, like, they can't possibly steal them in the air, right? And could you be more like obvious that like, well, obviously somebody's going to steal these in the air now because we have this. But what did you think of the setup of the idea of you have to rob money that you actually can't do anything with? Like if you walked around with $1,000 bill, you walked in a bank, you would be arrested immediately, Nick, because people know you don't have that in circulation.
Yeah, I mean, I guess kind of like what's their end game with the money if they can't use it?
Yeah, look, the whole point is like the mercenary group or whatever, we're told like they have the connections in foreign lands to be able to move that cash and like change it out. I'm like, what are you going to get? 60 cents on the dollar? Which I mean, $30 million is $30 million. There's $100 million. Maybe you can make that work, but there's, I don't know, 8 or 9 of them. I'm like, eventually that's going to run low. Like these are not well-funded mercenaries, but maybe you get the sense that this isn't their first job or only job either.
I guess, yeah. I mean, that was the one thing I was kind of trying to like understand here is like, you're going to take money that can't be used, but someone's going to give you money for it. I'm like, I guess again, another thing I'll have to go with, but yeah, I don't know. I just don't see why they just didn't make it kind of like, hey, this is just a money transport from one freaking currency place, to another. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to get like overly complicated with it, or just make it be like, oh yeah, it's a rich guy's plane, and he's just transporting money because he doesn't believe in the wiring or something. Got to have it in your hand. He's like the grandma's got to have it in the mattress. I don't know. It just seemed like a real convoluted thing to add to it. But I guess they're trying to make it seem like, okay, in this really dumb movie, we're going to do something smart.
Right. And I think you've hit on it. This movie is incredibly dumb and it knows it's dumb. So we've got to have smart criminals, right? Or at least ones that have a smart plan. Nick, the 90s was loaded with these, right? After Die Hard, right? Like every criminal.
Well, it's Die Hard on the Mountain.
Yeah, it was Die Hard on the Mountain, but unlike something like Speed, which was basically Die Hard on a bus, right? And maybe Die Hard Lethal Weapon on a bus. That had a smart thing to it. They also got the right people to play it. We'll get to Lithgow in a second, but they made the concept of the crime here so overly complicated that if you think about it at all, you go, like, wait a minute, what did you just say? Like, you steal this money, you can't use it? Like, I paid attention to that this time because I'll be honest, I had never caught that detail before. I thought they were just ripping money off, that for whatever reason, the Treasury decided to fly instead of run by train or whatever else, or Brinks truck. And I'm going,
just make it gold or make it jewels. You know what I mean? Make it something easy.
Yeah, like it would have been better if it was something like that. But we have to have somebody on the inside, obviously. But we have to break from that moment where we're getting to load up on the plane. We got this guy who's going to ride the plane with him. We see that set up, and he looks really sinister, so maybe you were supposed to wonder if he's the bad guy. Obviously, he won't be. But we have to cut away to like having emotions now, because Gabe comes back to town, and before he gets to Jesse, he is driving, and like two bros, ski bros, see him. And can you have a conversation between two cars driving 50 miles an hour up a mountain, Nick? Because these people do.
I've had yelling matches with people next to me on the freeway, but nothing like that. So I'm going to have to go with no, because even during times like that, you can barely hear someone, especially driving, they're probably going like 65 miles an hour and
Easily.
everything. It's like,
yeah.
And they're talking like they're sitting right next to each other. It's just one of those like stupid scenes where, I don't know, they're setting these two like extreme like Mountain Dew drinking guys up. And even as we get like further in the movie and like what their whole point is, I still don't even understand what the hell the point of these two guys are, except for maybe to be like, okay, you got some like teenagers in the audience and you're like, oh man, that's me. You know what I mean? Like Doc Martin flannel wearing guys,
It's two things. Stallone was like into like, we got to have some like extreme sports people in this, because that's what the kids are into, right? Like it was the X Games and all that was coming out. So he wanted that in there. And originally, like their parachutes were going to be part of a like elaborate escape scene that him and one of the other climbers had or whatever. And they just, again, they had to cut that down because it didn't make any sense. And then when they even tried to shoot it, it was just ridiculous. So that's why they kind of come and go. That we get one other scene of them cold in the tent, and we see them the next day, and then they get shot at. So they're just there to sort of set up that he's been gone, but he's back. He's the greatest climber in the history of ever or whatever. But all of this is so Stallone can go have this emotional scene with Janine Turner where like she's petting her horse or whatever at this gorgeous cabin she's got. I'm like, what a rescue workers make, because holy cow, girl, good work if you can get it.
Yeah.
And anyway, he's like, I just came back for you, Jesse. I came back for my stuff. And I'm like, you're part of my stuff. And what I like about her character though is she's like, this is my life here. You're the one that left, loser. Why should I leave with you?
Yeah, the whole like romantic thing right here. It's like, so I guess we're supposed to take it that he left because of what happened on the mountain. You know, she died and he couldn't be there anymore. And I guess I'm just trying to figure it out, because it's like, that's kind of your job. You know what I mean? Is like you screwed up once and now you leave. And if you're like the best mountain climber in the world and stuff like that, and okay, it's not going to go according to plan every time. So I'm trying to figure out like why he left at all, because it's just like, again, it's like part of your job. It's like, if a paramedic loses someone on the way to the hospital, they don't quit being a paramedic. It's like crap does happen. You know what I mean? Something like that's going to happen. I get it. It was traumatic, but even like when they go back to be like, why Rooker's like so mad at him, because like he's like, oh, you shouldn't have done it your way, and it's like, what other way was there?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's like he agreed to it. He went in like, monkey climbed across the cable there, and like he wanted to like. Why she was slipping, like his whole thing was like, I was going to give her another harness to slip on. She couldn't even pull herself up when Stallone had her in hand. So what's making him think that she, being a novice climber, is going to be able to sit there and basically get a new harness, put it on safely, and then reattach herself to the actual the wiring contraption? I'm just like, this doesn't make any sense here as far as why he's mad. I mean, he could be mad because she died, but Stallone did everything he could to save her. Moreover,
you're right. These guys are experienced climbers. This kind of thing has bound to have happened before. Moreover, Stallone is an EMT. Like, they drop lines about that. He's got the medical training for it. That's why when the distress call goes out, it's because somebody needs insulin. Like, they're faking it because they can really get some help that way, which is smart on the terrorist part or whatever, or the thieves part. But Rooker's not an EMT, or at least not as good a one as, Gabe Walker is. And so Stallone obviously has, if you're an EMT at any amount of time at all, you've lost people, and maybe it's somebody you don't know, but he's dealt with this. Like, you're trained to handle this. Go to counseling, get some therapy. It's the 90s. It's okay to do this now, right? And the fact that they keep playing it off like he's having this big tormented bit, I'm like, I love the fact that Jesse's like, dude, we all had to get over it. You need to get over it as well. And he's like, oh, Duke Hal's over it. Well, maybe he's not, but he will. Like, you bailed on me, and now you just want me to up and leave with you? No. And this is the other thing I knew too. Obviously, he wasn't missed, because after she drives off or rides off with the horse, the dog comes up to him and kind of looks at him, and he's like, hey, how you doing, boy? Nick, I go a month without seeing your dog, and he like attacks me when I see him. So I'm like, well, obviously Stallone was not really wanted there, because the dog didn't even miss him.
if the dog doesn't like you, you're in trouble.
But we have to get back to our midair heist and our shootout. And before we do anything else, like with all this that happens here, Travers obviously is involved in this. The other agent that's been tracking him figures it out pretty quick because there's a plane following him. He pulls a gun on him. The other guys grab him like, man, you're freaking out. And then Travers shoots everybody. And we know like what's going to happen. And I have to ask, did like Christopher Nolan steal this for the Dark Knight Rises opening? Because it awfully feels like it.
It's very similar. I mean, with the whole two planes and trying to get from one thing to another and everything. Yeah, it's very similar. I would say that. Yeah, he may have been maybe he wanted Stallone to be Bane at first. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's what Hardy was going for. Hardy was maybe trying to go for like a British version of Stallone when he was doing the voice.
Maybe that's it. I do know that he is a fan of all things 80s and 90s, so I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't a little cliffhanger at the beginning of that. But we get the whole setup here, and I gotta say, it is a good action scene, what goes on in the movie. We've got the cable between the two planes. We're gonna run the briefcases down there, and I like how Travers is like, I'm going first because something told me you might not have waited on me if I'd sent the money first. Well, this guy's not an idiot, at least. I do like that. But I have to ask, what kind of accent is John Lithgow going with here? I set it up in the beginning, but it is so strange and hard to place.
I don't know. It's an accent. I just don't think it's ever one that's been spoken before. So
I mean, he's like trying to give some edge to his voice because, like we've said, he's always kind of that very nice and sort of nice neighbor next door. He's kind of Mr. Rogers-ish. So when he wants to be mean, he always talks with a little bend in his, voice. I can't do it, but I don't know, it's weird, but it slips in and out throughout the movie, which tells me that like they had a lot of different scripts going, and he was like, "What am I again? Where am I from? Who cares, right? Whatever."
I mean, I think he's trying to do a British accent, right?
Right, and he can. That's the thing. John Lithgow is like a stage actor. Like, he can do this, but I think he's slipping in and out because he doesn't know what character he's supposed to play because there's like 5 different versions of the script running around.
Well, I think what happened here is, you kind of brought up Die Hard before, and of course, you have Alan Rickman in there who's got a very prominent British accent, and I could totally see like, Rennie Harlan and Stallone being like, "Oh, you got to do a British accent because, that's what they expect. If you're going to be a classy bad guy here or something like that, or you got to be like this, you got to have the British accent," but he cannot pull it off at all.
I will go again in his defense, having seen him do a lot of very good drama or whatever, where he's probably going like, "But guys, I'm ex-CIA in this page of the script. You don't worry about that page. I'm rewriting that page." Okay, so where's Quaylen from again? What kind of name is Quaylen? It doesn't matter. Oh, okay. I mean, like, I can see he's probably very confused. I've never read much of what he said about this movie. He was like, it was fun to do something with Stallone. How much age difference do you think is between these two guys, man?
I'd say, at least like 20 years.
No, like a year and a half. Lithgow's maybe a year and a half older than Stallone. He's like 46, 47 when they made this. Stallone's 45-ish. Also, John Lithgow's like a foot taller than him. He's 6'4". So that's why there's not a lot of scenes where they're on the same plane together, because John Lithgow's a huge man and Stallone is a ripped dude, but he's not a big dude. Well, he's, 5'6", 5'7", maybe. So he's a lot taller than him. I would have never believed they were that close in age. Not at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't have either. I mean, I guess now that I'm kind of looking at it, like, well, I guess Stallone really isn't that young, but the thing is, like, he's still making movies now. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you kind of forget that he's like damn near 80. And,
so's Lithgow. Stallone is making Rambo 6 or whatever and looks like, again, a hunk of meat. And John Lithgow's playing the elderly neighbor across the street in Pet Sematary remakes. I
think that's kind of the whole thing, is like, you're almost like taking them now and then taking like the years away. So you're like, well, John Lithgow's definitely 80 something. And okay, so he'll be like that then, but then it's like, or 670, whatever it is. And then you're like Stallone. It's like, there's so much plastic surgery here. I can't even tell anymore. Stallone's face looks like, oh my God, it's terrible right now. But anyways.
Right. So, but we see all this happening. The plane blows up finally because they've set a bomb on it. They don't get off quick enough. So they're dangling these cases, which of course they can't bring them up in time. They fall across the snow, and Travers is like, fine, I got the GPS locator here with my big, humongous Magno glass thing, and we'll be able to find them. But their plane has also been shot up. and is going to crash, right? And so they do the soft crash into the snow, do the radio for help. Everybody's alive except for the co-pilot who got hit by a tree or something, and we don't ever know his name. And so they're kind of working through a plan here to figure out what to do. Meanwhile, back at Treasury, the FBI shows up going like, hey, we think our guy that was on the plane was not just hitching a ride. He was investigating your guy who you say is your number one guy. Well, he's also a huge thief now. And that's when they go to, again, over explaining the plot about you couldn't even do anything with the money if you have it. Well, Quaylen would be the guy that could pull this kind of a heist. And I'm like, he's ex-CIA, but he's still kind of foreign, but we don't really know his origin. Like, it's all very muddled. Like, in some ways, they're overcomplicating the story, but without explaining any of it. And this is a 2-hour movie, for goodness sakes. Like, you couldn't give me just a little bit more dialogue to explain what the whole purpose was? Or maybe your idea, it should have been gold or something.
Just make it gold. I mean, it would have been so much easier here and everything. And yeah, this is, again, more with the money stuff. I'm just like, just get out. This is so stupid. I'm like, you guys are trying to be so smart. It's just coming off even more dumb here with the whole money stuff. But yeah, I got to laugh though, was because Winfield, man, he's always playing like a law guy, isn't he? As far as every movie that he's in, because I remember him from Terminator.
He was the captain of the Reliant that went down, and got the earworm and all that. He was also like a judge and presumed innocent. Paul Winfield's been around for decades, and I think he's gone now. But he, it was a fantastic actor. But he always kind of played some kind of law person. You're right, though. He was a Terminator guy. He was one of the lieutenants. But again, look, you overcomplicate the script without explaining it. It's so we can get back to more of this drama. Gabe's getting ready to leave because he's packing up his junk, and Jesse comes running after him going like, hey, we've got, down hikers or somebody needs insulin. It's about to really come down up there. Hal doesn't know EMT work like you do. He's going to help. And this is the convenient excuse that like is 15 times in this movie. If you take the north face, if you take the west face, you can beat them there. And I'm like, why would Hal not know that as well? Why would Hal always take the long way? After he's captured, I get why he does to stall, but why does he always take the damn long way?
But my thing too is like the whole insulin thing. Like, what? It's insulin, it's
well, no, they do that. That's actually smart though. They do that to try to get more people to come.
Yeah, but the whole thing is like, oh, he can't handle it because it's insulin. I'm like, dude, it's just an injection. It's not that big of a deal. You don't need the guy like the best EMT ever. This guy needs insulin. It's like,
moreover, it was set up that a mother, like her child needed the insulin. The mother would know how to administer that. It is kind of weak. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my mom's dog is diabetic, and everybody in the family gives the dog insulin. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not a big deal. It's a pretty common thing to do, but I just think it's like, doing something like, okay, this guy's got like a heart condition or something like that. It's just, again, the whole thing with like it being like insulin just again comes off like you guys just are not really trying here. But I get the whole point where it's like, yeah, let's get as many people up here as possible. Because I think the original goal was they wanted to get a helicopter.
Right. And then they realized they can't because, they can't get the helicopter because, one, it can't fly in that kind of crappy weather. So now that's when they go out on foot with their Magno glass again, where they get to look at all these things. So Hal goes to help. Gabe's there, and they have, the showdown where Rooker's like holding him over the ledge. And I love how Stallone's like, do it. And I'm like, really? Like, no, like, obviously he's not going to let you go. And of course he has to have some smart ass line about like, no, you get to live with it or whatever. And I'm like, that's what he's been doing, man. Like, why didn't you just beat the crap out of him at least on the mountain there? Like,
I thought Stallone was going to be like, I've been dead since that happened.
What a horrible, it's unnecessary. Like he could have been like, what are you doing here? He's like, you don't know this stuff like I do. Just let me help and I'm out of your life. And that would have been fine. We could have done that. It would have been better for me if Rooker
trying his best.
Yeah, if Rooker had been like, fine, had been professional about it. Like, fine, you help me get these people down and then you get your ass out of here. Like that would have made sense. But they go on way too much about that.
But the only thing that doesn't make sense is he goes from like holding him within an inch of his life right there to then when we fast forward, when they run, they go up the mountain and they end up running into them and finding out this is all a setup. And they find out like, oh, well, you guys are going to take us to these cliffs here where the money landed. And right away, like they're telling Stallone when they get up to the first one that it's like, take off your jacket for insurance. And he's like, he's going to die if you do that. I'm like, you were just holding him over the cliff like 5 minutes ago. I'm like, why do you care now if he's gonna die? It's like you went from being like nearly like a murderer to now you don't want your best friend to go without a jacket. I'm like, this kind of like the whole like, it sounds like the script was really, really kind of muddled together, because the way his character goes from like hating him to liking him to hating him to liking him throughout the whole entire movie is really confusing.
It's whiplashing, and I don't blame Rooker. I think, again, like, he and Lithgow are going like, man, do you know what we're doing to that? Man, I have no idea. Like, I can hear that conversation happening while Stallone is over there furiously rewriting this crap and arguing with Rennie Harlan all the time. I could totally believe that, because this is right in the prime of him doing
being like, the Rooker be like, so I'm supposed to be upset that you're getting the jacket. Oh, yeah, like, we used to be, like, best friends and stuff, and you don't want to see me freeze. And then later it's like, so now I kind of, by bitching at you because I want you to die. Oh, yeah, you're still mad about the girlfriend thing. It's like, huh? You know, just Stallone and his Stallone logic.
Do you know what would have made that work so much better? If Stallone had stayed there, and then there was just all that uneasy tension between them all the time. Like, they were professional enough to work together, but they obviously didn't like each other. You know, like, there was, like, that would have been actual human drama. You know, we could have played that, and we could have also cut 20 minutes out of this movie. That's unnecessary, because what we really want to get to is the action that's going to set.
Well, how about this though? Let's say they set it up where these two guys are helping him out, and Stallone's like, we can't trust these guys or whatever, and the guys are like, just help us out. We'll give you some of the money. You know what I mean? And like Rooker's like going along with it, being like, hey, I don't have a life anymore. This is going to get me out of here. I can't be here because of what happened to my girlfriend. You can get it. You know, you got up and left. I didn't have that. And this is going to let me get out of here. Where it's kind of like setting up like this uneasy tension between them, as far as like he's going along with it and then Stallone's calling their bluff. Just to kind of give some more additional tension.
Yeah, that would have totally worked. I agree. That would have totally worked better. But we're left with the movie that we have, and that's not what we're going to get. So they get up to the first case, and, you know, Quaylen's down there going like, all right, when he comes back down, get rid of him. Obviously, we'd only need one of these idiots to do this with. And Rooker grows the balls and is like, hey, they're going to kill you if you come back down. And so Stallone uses his climbing apparatus to cut the rope that they tied around his leg as a leash or whatever to get away. And then they fire up into the snow cap above with grenades and about 1,000 rounds. It's like that scene in Predator where they cut down the jungle. And I'm like, these guys are ex-military operatives. Obviously, they've operated all over the world. Any idiot knows if you shoot up into snow above you, it is about to come down on you. What a bunch of morons.
Not only that, but it's like you're shooting into the mountain. What is underneath that snow but rock? Those bullets are not going to go through the rock. They're made of copper, and you know what I mean? And it's like they're not going to go through anything up there. They're just going to chip off stuff that's going to fall back on you. But it's, again, we're going with Stallone logic here. So
well, and I mean, Quaylen gets the best line because he sees all the money falling down with the avalanche that does kill the grenade launching dude. He's like, well, your friend had the most expensive funeral in the history of the world, so let's move on to that second case. And I'm like, man, this boy just wrote off $33 million like it was nothing to him. I'm like, man, that's hardcore right there.
And that's the whole thing, like the whole thing with like Lithgow's character is I just don't get his motivations here, because
he didn't seem to care.
He doesn't seem to care about anything. He's just kind of like, we'll get into it later, but like how he's just like, oh, I'll kill this person. Oh, I'll
he kills the woman that, like, you kind of get a sense that they have a romantic thing going on, maybe, or whatever. But when Travers is basically holding the GPS locator hostage, or the code to it hostage, because he's like, I'm not gonna let you just screw me like that. Lithgow grabs this guy and is like, you know what? It was real love, sacrifice, and he shoots this woman. He's like, so I guess we're working together now because I'm the only pilot left here. And I'm like, man, what a psycho.
Yeah, it'd be better if, like, again, like they rewrote these characters where, like, maybe Mustache Dude is like, we got to get the money, and Lithgow's just more like, hey, you know what? I just want to live. I want to get the hell off this cliff. And there's kind of like this natural, like, tension between them because they both have different objectives here. So, yeah, when the money gets blown up and stuff like that, he's like, hey, you know what? Let's get out of here. You know what I mean? This is stupid. We're not going to get the money back. Where then you have Mustache Dude being like, no, we got to get the money. This whole entire thing was about the money. So, again, it's just like Lithgow and like everything. It's just like, I don't know what it is. I mean, Alan Rickman really wanted, to go through with his plans and Die Hard. Lithgow, I don't know what the hell his end game is.
Well, there's nobody smart in the heist at all. There's always got to be one person that's smarter than everybody else that kind of keeps everybody level. Like, think about the general in The Rock, played by Ed Harris, right? Who, like, when it finally all goes south, he's not really going to blow that missile up over San Francisco. They called the bluff. He calls it off. That's it. But I mean, he tells these guys, like, straight up, like, I'm not here for the money. Like, I had to get the money so I could pay you idiots, right? Because that's the only way I could pull this off. But I don't care about the money. But I'm here to try to make a point. Point was made. It's time to get out of Dodge. We got a little bit of money here. We'll be all right. And what do you have is all the crazy people like, Candyman and all these other people that are freaking out because they don't have their money, right? Like, well, Quaylen should have been the same thing as Ed Harris, Hummel, right? He should have been like, hey, look, guys, we've done a lot of jobs. Like, we can walk away from this one. Let's shoot the agent and get the hell out of here because this is ridiculous. Like, there's no one that has any sense, and all of the mercenaries are the same. They all want the money. They're obviously in it for the dough. And I'm like, you're well funded enough to pull something like this off. $100 million is a lot of money. And you went through a lot of trouble to get it, but clearly it wasn't the end of your career. Or at least you didn't set that up for us. So again, nobody has any stakes. They just seem to be violent for violence sake.
Or have one guy going, why are we even trying to get this money anyway? We can't spend it. It's worthless. It's
right. Like... Again, not a good plan. Overly complicated for no reason. But we get to the second, case, and Gabe and Jesse are ahead. And I have to ask a question. Like, Gabe saw the little GPS locator where those things were on, like, it looked like a dot matrix, like War Games kind of printout of where those things were. Yet he knows exactly where the cases are before they get there. Are they like hearing this on the radio and he's figuring out shortcuts? How are he and Jesse always ahead of them in terms of the money?
I'd guess maybe he's just got like a great photographic memory and because, I know these mountains and stuff where he can just like, I know those really poorly rendered cliffs that are done like in a wire graphics style.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the whole thing too. I was laughing early when like Lithgow's showing him like these pictures of the cliff, which look like, 1989, like war game style, like graphics on the computer.
This is 83.
Do you know these cliffs? I'd be like, no one would know what that is. Just like, it's a bunch of freaking lines. We're in the Colorado Rockies. There's thousands of like little cliffs like that go up and down here. It's impossible for me to tell it based upon that picture. But of course he knows. So I guess I'm just taking it as, okay, he knows where this stuff is. He's got a great photographic memory and he's going to get there before them because he's the world's greatest climber and insulin, injector.
Well, he doesn't have the shirt on. He's at the old, cabin or whatever. So Jesse figures that out from some garbled radio message, goes and rescues him and gets him some more clothes because he's sitting there freezing and he's like having a, freak out, which I would be too. I mean, it's cold. It's not the only time we're going to see that, by the way. But I love how they finally get to the second case and they use it to make a fire, like in a cave. Then I'm like, well, that's pretty good. Like, he even gets a bad pun. Like, it's almost like it was a line that they left in where she looks at him like, that's really bad. He's like, I know. And they just left it in as sort of an inside joke. But I like the fact that they, like, at least they're not tempted at all by this. Because again, I wouldn't know that you couldn't spend $1,000 bill. Like, if I hadn't watched this movie, I'm sure they could be like, man, hey, we could do some damage with this. But no, they're just going to throw it in the fire because they're so altruistic.
No, but common sense would be like, all right, well, we're using this all to like make a fire, and we can grab like a handful of these. It's not going to make a difference when it comes to the fire or not. It might give us like an extra 2 seconds of fire. So let's just put that in our pocket, and then we please escape here. Let's just go someplace warm. You know what I mean? Let's just
forever.
We'll grab 20 of the $1,000 bills, 20,000. That's going to make for a very nice vacation, but not very much of a good fire. So, but yeah, they don't even do that, which is like, oh wow, you guys are really noble. You know what I mean? It's like. Yeah, but really you're not noble because you're burning it. So I don't
exactly. Right. So anyway, they are setting this whole thing up though so that the one guy who's super evil, Leon, can go and have a one-on-one because Stallone's got to have a fight with somebody, and he's like, "Hey, Lithgow's kind of tall, so I need somebody a little more." Also, he's old, so even though he's not that much older than you, Sly, it doesn't matter. He looks old, so I got to have a fist fight with somebody. So let it be this guy. So basically, we have this. So they set up all these explosives so that they basically can try to cave them in, and Sly and this Leon guy can have a fist fight in the cave where he refuses to
martial arts too.
Exactly. Yes. He does martial arts. He pulls out like a huge freaking knife out of like Cobra or something again. And we have this like way wrong answer. And we get Stallone power pressing him into stalactites.
That was pretty cool. That's actually the one death I really thought was cool. And there was like, because they set it up pretty obvious when they're showing all of them everywhere. And then when, he basically just like presses him up into it. I'm like, okay, I'll give you that. That was a pretty cool death. Plus, I couldn't stand the guy either. That guy was freaking annoying because it was like, tell me again where the money is. I burned it. And it's like, to give you 2 more tries. It's like, he's obviously not going to tell you, man. You got him already halfway beaten to death. So,
right.
Yeah.
But Jesse gets involved too. Like, she tries to shoot him, but the gun's out of bullets. So at least she's taking a little bit of her own agency there. She's not waiting to be rescued. It's not nearly as annoying as the soccer playing loving dude, though, that tries to kick Michael Rooker to death until Rooker throws him off a cliff and shoots him with his own damn shotgun. Like that.
Well, I had to laugh at this, though, because I'm watching this with the wife. And as he's talking about kicking, he's what? He's British, right?
Or something.
And and he calls it soccer.
Yeah, it would call it football.
He would never call it soccer.
No.
He'd call it football.
Yeah, I'm sure that actor.
Like a huge thing.
I'm sure that actor and Rennie Harlan looked at Sylvester Stallone and said, "Frickin' Americans!" they had to do it because I'm sure Stallone's like, people in America don't call it that, man. Football's a different sport in America, and they know that, but I'm sure they were like, but this guy would never say that. Sly, he's not from America. It doesn't matter. He needs to call it soccer. Okay.
Or they could have done something where the guy was like, I'm sure you know the sport, football, which you guys call soccer, even though, your football you don't even use your feet, or something like that.
Something, right?
He could have done some insult or something like he probably would have done. But that's the whole thing is like, I guess my question on this too is like, Rooker's just getting the shit kicked out of him, and I'm like, that he has that knife because they showed it earlier.
Yeah, because they get old Frank to fly the helicopter up there, and we gun him down for reasons of being evil, but he's able to slip Rooker the knife.
Well, he deserved to die, though. If you watch that opening scene when that lady's like hanging there, that dude is smiling the entire time. So I think he set that up. Go seriously,
Ralph.
Anybody listen to this? Go type in like Cliffhanger smiling. And you'll see a picture of him with like Rooker screaming, and then he's got like this big Joker grin on his face. It's hilarious.
What would have been great is if Frank was like Quaylen's dad or something. We would have had a whole like incestuous thing going on. Not incestuous. We'd have this whole family connection. It would have been great, but.
How much better would it have been, though, if that would have been, Jesse's the girl, right?
Yeah.
If that would have been, like, her father or something like that. And it'd be like, okay, that's why they got a nice place, because they own a helicopter, and they do helicopter rides up there. They get tourist money. I mean, they could have done something here to kind of connect these things, because, like, when they kill this guy, it's supposed to be like, oh, my God, I can't believe they killed him. And besides just being, like, a nice old man, there's really no connection that the audience has to this guy.
He does weird abstract paintings for some reason on acrylic.
Yeah, but I think if you would have showed it being like, oh, that's her nice old father or something like that, you might be like, oh, that bastard, they killed her dad or something like that. There's, you know what I mean? Give something a little bit more of a connection here. But yeah, Rooker grabs the guy's knife and everything, but then he's like later now he's getting the shit kicked out of him by the soccer guy. And why does he wait to the last second to grab that knife? I mean, he's hanging from the cliff for him to grab that knife. And I'm like, you could have grabbed that knife at any time and slit that guy's throat.
Right, or cut his Achilles heel or something like that. Yeah. He's going down when that happens. Look, everybody watching the NBA Finals, Durant went down quick with that Achilles pop. It was over. Like, that happens to you, you are out. Like that, yeah. He had to wait to the right traumatic moment, though, Nick, because not only does he stab him through the foot, he grabs his shotgun and shoots him to propel him backwards off the cliff. I'm like, you and I have shot shotguns. Rooker's going down with that. I don't care if there's no stock on it or not. The kick on that 12 gauge is sending them off the cliff.
Yeah. Or at least it's breaking his wrist. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, it's doing something. What's funny, though, is that shotgun turns to a rifle, though, right after this.
Yes, it does. So, a little continuity problems there. But no, he gets, we have to have Hal have one moment. He has to take out his own Merc because Stallone's getting to take out enough of these dudes because a lot of them are falling off the side of this and that and the other along the way. But it's all a show up to Travers finally realizes that this is a freaking waste of time. And he throws the thing away and he's like, screw you, Quaylen. I'm going on my last manhunt ever. And I'm like, okay, well, good for you for finally realizing that this is completely pointless.
Yeah, it's just some of the stuff in this end right here. It's just like, I guess they're trying to give everybody their moment or their own little thing off of here. But, I guess, like when Travers, he's going up there and he's going to fight against, Gabe and everything like that. This is the most ridiculous scene in the movie. Is the underwater thing. I mean, it's kind of cool the way it is because like Stallone, like they're fighting and then Stallone ends up breaking through the ice, and then like Travers is sitting there just like kind of laughing at him as like, you know, Stallone's underneath there trying to break it through, but then he grabs. They set it up earlier in the movie, like the little air pressurized
the repelling gun.
Uses, to put the hooks into the mountain. He ends up shooting it through the ice and then killing the guy. Which I don't even know if that thing would have that type of velocity, let alone being shot underneath water. I've watched a lot of videos with like stuff being shot into water, so maybe it's different when it's coming out of water. I'm not a physics major, so I don't know, but I don't think it would. I mean,
they set up that it could hit into the side of the Rocky Mountains. I guess it's got enough pressure. I wonder, I'm like, is that really going to come up through the thing? But you know what this is, man? This is John McClane under the table, and the guy's like, next time you have a chance to shoot somebody, do it, don't talk. And he shoots the guy through the table. I'm like, well, I guess Stallone needed that moment, because that's what he does, is he shoots Travers like 4 times with this.
No, mind you, he's shirtless.
Yes.
He's underneath this water up on this cliff here. I don't even know how this is happening, but he's underneath there. He breaks up through. He would be, I mean, no, he'd be obviously, you know, Rooker actually saves him, pulls him up out of there. How the hell is he dry in the next scene?
Yeah, the very next scene, like we cut away from him to see Quaylen, and you know, now he's got Jesse hostage calling in on the radio, and we cut back and Gabe is like totally dry. They didn't have a towel around his head, man.
That's the whole thing. It's like he's completely dry and everything. It's like, you think about it, okay, you're in pants and your pants are wet and you get out there, your pants are now ice. Okay?
Yes.
It's like they are frozen solid and you are now being frozen from the outside.
Moreover, Nick, your socks are wet and frozen. Your feet have frostbite. You're dead. Like your leg, you're gone. Like there's no way you're surviving that.
No, you pull you up from there. It's like you got minutes to like, you know, get your body temperature back up or something. You know, you're dead. There's no way to do it naturally without like some type of like resuscitation blanket or something to heat you up. You know what I mean? It's like,
and they don't have any of that.
See, like, they don't have any of that. They got snow around them and some, you know, walkie-talkies. But Stallone's fine. I mean, the fact that they don't even address that, the way he's even got dry hair, is like it's amazing.
It's just bad. It shows you how caught together this movie was and how chopped up it was in the end. I mean, it really does. But we finally get our last showdown though, because Quaylen's like, whatever the money you got left, I'll take it. I'm the last of my goons alive. I've got your woman. So unless you want to see her plastered on the side of the mountain, you better come meet me here, there, and otherwise to, you know, trade.
Of course the bad guys got Mary Jane. You know what I mean? It's just the way it always was going to be at the end.
Which that's sad too though, man, because she is not a Mary Jane character. Like she has taken a lot of risks. She's pretty smart. She's tough, but she has to play this stupid damsel in distress at the end. And I hated that for her because Jenny Turner was a better actress than that. And also the character's not written that way, but the characters are also friggin' uneven in this movie. It doesn't even matter.
Well, they try to make it sound like, oh, well, she thought it was the old guy in the helicopter and he tricked her or something like that into it or whatever.
Right.
It's
she thought, oh, it's Frank. And then she looks around and, no, it's Eric Quaylen.
It would be better if it was her father, but that's just my rewrite.
And what I love here is Quaylen's like not a totally unreasonable person, because Stallone's like, no, you got to let her go first and then I'll give you the money. And Quaylen's like, okay, well, you've only killed like 8 of my people, but I'll trust you now. And so he lets the girl off the helicopter. And what does Stallone do? The thing you knew he was going to do. He throws the money into the whirling blades of the helicopter. That was a pretty cool effect. I liked that. But Quaylen was dumb to ever believe that would work.
And at that point too, I'm just like, maybe just give him the money. You know what I mean? It's like, you're going to throw it up there, whether you do that or give it to him. The chances of him maybe like turning around and trying to shoot you guys is pretty much going to be the same. Probably more so if you throw the money into there. So it's like,
yeah, you know what's better? He's got that grappling hook hanging down. So while you're handing over the money, Rooker's like hooking it to the side of the mountain on that ladder, which is what they do anyway. And when he tries to fly off, he just crashes and they're like, hope it was worth it, you know, or whatever. And then they're done like that. Instead of this ridiculous fight scene between him and Lithgow fighting in that helicopter, as if, by the way, I know Lithgow's a lot taller than him. Sloan would beat the hell out of that man. I'm sorry. He would kill that old man. There's no way he would be able to match with that dude. It would be like if I went and picked a fight with, I don't know, Brock Lesnar tomorrow, whatever. I'm a pretty tall dude, but Lesnar would kill me like in one blow, probably. It's a terrible, I hate it when movies do this. Because even like the slow movies, like the Night Slasher guy in Cobra was a big hulking dude. So like the fight between them made sense. Wesley Snipes is like a martial arts nut, So in Demolition Man, that's a pretty even looking fight. He's a muscular dude. John Lithgow is your like math teacher. Again, he's not good. He's not an action hero. He can be an evil mastermind, but he shouldn't have had a fight scene. Like that fight scene is so lame. Even if it's supposed to have all this tension because the helicopter starts crashing and they're slipping down the mountain one piece at a time, and you have that great shot of Stallone jumping off the cliff, which I think is the thing they had to pay the guy $1 million to do. This stunt guy, but I mean, really, like it is a dumb fight at the end of this movie.
Yeah, no, it is. It's ridiculous, but I mean, they should have done something where maybe they like injured, Stallone got injured or something, or maybe he's suffering from the effects of hypothermia. I don't know. Maybe to make it a little bit more even. But yeah, it's dumb. I mean, and then they got, of course, the helicopter crashing into the side of the mountain and killing Lithgow and everything. I guess the thing I was most surprised about was actually seeing the Rooker's character survive.
I thought he would die. Yeah.
I thought he would die like sacrificing Stallone or something like that. Like, I was totally expecting a scene where Stallone was hanging off the mountain and Rooker grabbed him. And like Rooker was giving it like a second thought of like, maybe I'll just let you go like you did to my girlfriend.
No, we did get that scene though. They replay that later on, like in the cave or something. He has to pull Jesse up, and she's actually able to reach up and grab his arm and help herself up with him because they replay that whole moment later on. And I was like, that is so freaking lame to call back to that because totally different people in completely different situations. That is awful.
But that's what I mean though. If you did it with like Rooker and Sly or something like that, it would be kind of like, I had a chance to, whatever, you know what I mean? Kind of like, I don't know. It's stupid either way. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's just, I'm shocked that he didn't die like sacrificing himself for Stallone or something like that, like where it was going to be like, whatever. But it was weird to see basically out of all the good guys. I mean, really, the old guy died, which he was so old, he was probably going to die in a year anyways. And then one of the, extreme sports guys, the really, really extreme sports guy with like the Keanu Reeves blonde hair, died. And that's really it for the good guys, really. I mean, am I wrong there?
Yeah, no, I think the other guy died too because he got hung in the tree and the wolves were eating him later. Like he got shot, but he was able to get off the mountain and get his parachute down, but he hangs in the tree and dies. The guy, Max Perlich is his name. He was in Buffy years later, and he's
I think he lived. I thought they made us mention that he was going to be fine. Like they were transporting him to a hospital.
Oh, see, I missed that. See, I totally missed that because I know old Frank showed up and like scared the wolves off, but I thought they were like already eating his carcass or something.
No, he got shot like in the back or whatever, and like there was blood on the ground, and I'm assuming that's why the wolves got attracted because they smelled the blood. But then like they were trying to like get at his boot. But yeah, he shot his revolver, and yeah, they later said like he flew him down, like I guess real quick, flew him down to the base camp or whatever, and then they were helicoptered him.
That would explain then why he doesn't have a lot of fuel to fly around with, even though they're flying around a lot at the end. They dropped that line.
See, it's a smart script. Look at that.
Yeah, not even close. But we end on the end with the three friends reunited, and everybody's happy, and I guess we're old Frank's dead, so now Gabe's definitely got to come back to work. But you reckon Rooker's like, hey, man, you took 8 months off. I'm getting that job. And, and somewhere in Janine Turner's going like, screw y'all. I'm getting that job. There's going to be a good sitcom to be made out of those three on the mountain somewhere. But darn it, we never got Cliffhanger, the TV show.
I guess, I'm even thinking about like what their jobs were. Wouldn't this movie just been better if they were like mountain tour people or something? Like
they just got caught up in it. That would even be more implausible, though. That would be ridiculous. Like they have to have access to like equipment and knowledge.
No, not like them. Like they're the ones that take people up there. Like they're like the Sherpas of they're like the tour guides. Yeah, like the Sherpas of the Rockies or whatever. Where it's like people take them to go up there, and they're the ones that know the ways up and the ways down in the mountains and everything like that. Like the whole EMT stuff with the rescue things, like, I don't know. It's weird. The movie's not good. Jay, I think we've come to the end here.
We have definitely come to the end. It's time for final thoughts, recommendations, and popcorn ratings. So do the obvious thing, Nick, and tell us what yours are for Cliffhanger.
I'm not going to give it a small popcorn because I'm going to reserve that for the really bad, Blair Witch Projects 2, secret movies like The Specialist that people will never hear that were really, really small popcorns. But this one is kind of a medium popcorn. It's not good, but it's not like really, really bad. It's just kind of blah. It's a movie where I always use these analogies like it's a cleaning movie on Saturday. It's like, you got people coming over later that night. You're going to put something on the TV while you're going to sit there and you're going to wash the floors. I mean, that's this kind of movie. It's something where you don't really want to watch it the entire time because it's going to be really, really stupid. But there's a couple little fun scenes in here, like, the guy getting put through the whatever you call that in the mountains where he's getting impaled or something.
Yeah, the stalactite. Yeah.
It's like that. It's a medium popcorn. It's like I said, if it's on Saturday when you're cleaning, you can put it on. You can do a lot worse, but definitely not like a Friday or Saturday night movie.
I gotta say, man, outside of the work of Wolfgang Kulik and Ron Koch, who were the doubling guys for Stallone and pretty much everybody else here that did the climbing, they're the climbers, and Kulik died before the movie even came out, and so a lot of the reshoots are Koch. Outside of that, and the spectacle, ain't a lot to hang on to here, man. I'm gonna give it the small popcorn because if it was fun,
really,
if it was totally fun the whole way through, I would give it the medium for just being kind of stupid and ridiculous. But the problem is, this isn't fun because if you apply any bit of brain power at all to it, you realize how dumb it is. And then if you read about it, you realize it is so muddled together. I think the setup, they've got something in the first act. And even through the setup, through the heist on the plane, I'm in the movie at that point. But after that, dude, I was checking my watch. I was seeing how much time was left in the thing. I got bored with this. And that's the worst thing you can say about an action movie. And also, Lithgow's just totally wrong for the character they've got him playing. If he was the mastermind, as he kind of is in this movie, it would work. But for him to also play the physical heavy, I just don't buy it. It just doesn't work. And it does not hold up at all. It looks great. It's a beautiful looking movie, but it is a really stupid movie. And it's not the worst thing we reviewed, not even close, but it's definitely in the small popcorn territory, man. I cannot give this one a pass. Cliffhanger, drop off the cliff. This is bad stuff. Yeah.
Well, we both agree it's not a good movie, but I don't think it's that bad. But
yeah, well,
each their own.
Yeah, exactly. So, we're at the end of our summer of Stallone here, folks, and now we're going to get into some fun stuff in September. And Nick, you and I've got something. We don't do a lot of these here on Film Strip, but we did the remake of It, Chapter 1, when it came out a few years ago, and we let it come out of theaters and then went home. But it's going to be out in theaters this September, so you and I are going to go and check that out, and we'll do a show, a couple days after it. So I'm looking forward to seeing It Chapter 2.
Yeah, definitely. I think that'll actually. Will that be I think we're going to plan on going to see that together. So I think that might be the first time we've watched the movie in the theater and then reviewed it. So I think we're going to kind of do one of those. If Jay's up to it, where we actually go watch it and then we go review it right away. So it'll be right off our minds and everything. Because even Cliffhanger, I watched this yesterday, so it's not right after the movie. So I think it'd be kind of a fun show. It'd be kind of a little bit different. So
yeah, it'd be a different. It'll be the first time we've recorded in the same space and sent it out to the world. So that'll be a lot of fun. We've done quick turnarounds on the show before for previous episodes, but you and I've never done it, and I've never watched something with another host and then immediately jumped on to record it. So that'll be fun to do. And I'm curious to see, you go back and listen to my review on that. I might have been a little hard on that movie, a little harder than maybe I wanted to be, because I've watched it again since, and it's pretty good. It's actually a lot better than maybe I gave it credit for. So I'm open to the idea of what they can give us in Chapter 2, and we'll see where it goes from there.
I think when you start going over the whole Stephen King oeuvre, which we reviewed quite a bit of his stuff, it's definitely in the upper echelon when it comes to adaptations for Stephen King. I know that's not saying a lot, but I put it in the top 5. But
it's definitely in there. Folks, you can find all the episodes on our website, filmstrippodcast.com. You can also find where you can subscribe to the show. And if you do, please leave us a positive review and share the show on social media. It helps other people find out we're growing the audience, and we really appreciate that. You can follow the show on Twitter at FilmstripPod. And then you can also search for us on Facebook. We've got a Facebook page, Filmstrip Podcast, where you can find all the information there and interact with any of the hosts that you like. We appreciate the support. Until next time, for Nick, I'm Jay. You've been listening to Film Strip.
Thank you for listening to Film Strip. You can find more episodes on our website, filmstrippodcast.com. The Filmstrip theme music is produced and performed by Frozen Lake 121. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of the respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504, C2, Title 17.